everyone. Thank you for coming here to Vienna. Today we are actually celebrating the final conference of the FutureFlow project. And this project, for those who have not been with us all the time, started somewhere in 2015 and then officially in January 2016. So we have some history already behind us, but more and more that we progressed into the project, more we saw that the initial idea of bringing the transmission system operators and their services in line with the prosumers and the future of distributed guardians of the power systems, that this is not just a technical but also a wider social and also political question. This is why I'm really grateful that we have today a distinguished guest with us, the Honorable Ambassador, and that Mr. Kopač is really hosting this important event here at the premises of the Energy Community Secretariat. So, if I can give you just a short introduction, which will not go into technical stuff, but will stay on some higher level. I think we all know these important EU goals about reducing the greenhouse gas emissions by 80 to 95% by 2050. So that's a number which we all can understand. But if we want to really understand the essence of this problem, and I hope that we all agree that this is the number which still touches our lifespan, so that we will most probably see these events going on, that we are talking about this. So we want to reduce the greenhouse emissions from this to that. And this is the huge challenge which is in front of us. And if we don't really believe in this, if we don't associate with this enormous challenge, I think everything what we do on the field is without the real essence. And the FutureFlow is really going to that direction, very, very essentially and very straightforward. And if we want to reach that goal, we will have maybe, I will try to generalize here, but we will have two kinds of solutions. We will need to build a lot of new infrastructure. This will be maybe called basic or traditional solutions, but they're not really traditional because we will need a lot of new DC connections. We will need to integrate new wind plants and a lot of renewable energy sources. We will need assets, we will need infrastructure. That will be important for the future. But besides that, or maybe on the top of that, additional measures will be needed. Additional measures in different kinds: energy efficiency, activation of consumers, smart grids, cross-sector actions, storage. So all this new stuff which we talk about will be crucially necessary to reach the environmental targets. So both these elements have intrinsic, I would say, weaknesses. We cannot think about infrastructure and additional measures as straightforward processes. If we talk about the infrastructure, we will have a huge burden on the environmental issues. You know how hard it is to build centralized units, to build huge project lines. Whatever infrastructure you want to put into operation, it's a nightmare for the developers. And if we talk about these additional measures, the soft things, the storage and all these new technologies, they also come with a big, I would say, burden. Why is it so? It's just because we are in a very strange situation today. So, what is happening? So we have a lot of traditional power plants which are somewhere at the verge of of being here and not being here, and we are reducing the operational hours of these power plants, but they are still here. They're still around us, so we still have a lot of coal and gas units operational today, and because we want to have them, because we need stability of the power system, we are introducing the capacity mechanisms to keep them in operation so that they maintain the stability of the grid, and that's something what we find very important today. But we have to understand the consequence of this action, because when you do something like this, when you put some subsidies into some schemes which are necessary, this will have some impact. And the impact which we observe today is that if we look to the ancillary services markets, which is the secondary control, the primary control, all the backup units, and everything what we as engineers need to operate the system, this situation on the left is now reducing the prices of ancillary services. This is where we are today, and we have different services on the grids, on the markets, and it's actually today very hard to run a hydropower plant with profit. Even if we know that this is a perfect source of flexibility, it's not easy to be profitable. Even having the traditional, I would say, classic hydropower plant operated, it will not be easy to run it with profit because the prices of ancillary services today are so challenging. So, if we look a bit into the future, the coal plants will operate for some time, but sooner or later the things will change. Either they will close or they will change it to something different, but this effect will definitely increase the prices of ancillary services markets. So, of course, this is a bit of prediction. We all know how hard it is to predict something on the markets, but please look into this future. So, energy and ancillary services, they are connected, and the more we look into the future, more this effect will happen. And then, of course, we will need everything. We will need centralized storage, we will need new resources, we will need more hydro. One option will be, of course, to transit through gas. I'm not talking here just from my personal perspective. We really met a lot of people when we introduced the FutureFlow project to the general public, and I have to tell you that this gas option is really seen as one of the viable, especially outside Europe. But okay, let's talk about Europe. Maybe Europe might avoid the gas scenario for ancillary services. And we have to understand that ancillary services will be the last foundation, the last cornerstone where we will do the transition into renewables. And of course, then we have the platforms, we have the distributed sources for flexibility, and the FutureFlow is going in that direction. So, if I want to give you some highlights on this high-level messaging, the first highlight which I would like to give you is that the FutureFlow project and similar platforms which we develop here also, of course, we are not alone in this world. Platforms like FutureFlow also operate in a different way for the distribution operators and for other stakeholders, but we really connected the TSO business with the prosumers, which I think is the first time that someone did it in such extent, with such a huge project. We have a 13 million project with 12 partners. We're very focused to very specific use cases. But yes, if the platforms like FutureFlow are ready, of course the challenge is to have it ready when we need it, when that scenario of transition from coal happens. If we have it ready, maybe we could avoid these gas scenarios, and maybe we could avoid extensive investment into storage, because we don't know today whether storage will be expensive or cheap. And that's one of important highlights why we need these platforms. The second highlight out of 4. I just have 4, that you don't think I will stand here for the rest of the day. So what we somehow elaborated in this project and what we found out is important on the cross-border level. Let's talk a bit of what we can do on the cross-border. That's how we should connect the member states into this challenge. So in this project, we have 4 TSOs. We have 4 countries which participate and give their contribution. Austria, Hungary, Slovenia, and Romania. And what we try to do is we try to use the resources coming from the prosumers, and we try to make the benefit leverage on having more than 1 TSO, which means that, yes, we establish that if you have more countries, more member states collaborating in such platforms, the prosumers could really offer more to the system services. That's a very straightforward conclusion. And this is also important for the success of these prosumer technologies, because you can imagine if the prosumer and aggregator which works with him has to establish some specific markets, and this will be niche markets, and if this market operates only in one country, in one system, it's very hard to gain liquidity, to really push these services across Europe. But here, if we have more TSOs, that might work much better. Centralization. So we visited China, we talked with Google and similar companies, and everybody thinks that okay, let's imagine we will have these platforms. They will operate maybe in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, whenever. But some people believe that these platforms should really be centralized, which means you have one partner on the top, like maybe State Grid of China or Google or anyone like that, and he will set and he will define all these underlying parameters, and there will be some rules on the top like network codes, but some people imagine that it's better to centralize everything. The message of the FutureFlow project is that we shouldn't go that way. That the platforms like the FutureFlow should allow the ecosystem to develop, to innovate, and that we should gain a lot of market value if we avoid a total centralization of such platforms. As you know, maybe not all, but on the FutureFlow project, we developed 4 layers of different platforms. One for the prosumers, one for the TSOs, international prosumers, and some adaptations in the middle. So this is the important value of our future work. Not only on the FutureFlow project, on all such platforms as we have here. And here is the last important highlights, which I would like to give here, and it's also my conclusions for today. If you listen to me carefully, I think you got the essence of the real value and the real challenges we have with the FutureFlow project and similar platforms. But if you want to go out to the stakeholders which are not sitting with us today, we definitely need to scale. And we need to scale not only the solution which we develop here, but we have to scale the science, the culture, the mentality. So this spirit, I think, which will come out of the Today table, this should become the spirit of European Union in the future. So I really want to thank everybody being with us today. I want to thank also the European Union and the European Commission who enabled us to work on these challenges. But please have in mind that when we finish this work, we will become the ambassadors of these solutions, and that it will be our responsibility to go out and to tell to the people that this is the real stuff. Thank you.